Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Several people sent me a story. They knew I'd like it because it happens in Michigan. And of course, it involves Tesla, which means that many people in my audience will want to hear about it. Crazy story. Got it from Jeff and Jeff, two different people named Jeff. Larry also sent it to me from electrek.com, electrek.com, electrek.com. It's a website that talks a lot about electric cars and so on. Tesla loophole for direct sales in Michigan is getting shut with impressive political backstabbing. Fred Lambert wrote this, and I've done several articles about how Michigan was trying really, really hard to keep Tesla out of the state. So there is a Tesla showroom in a mall in Troy, Michigan, a place called Somerset, very, very high-end mall. And you can walk into the store and see a Tesla. If you want to buy the Tesla, they used to make you jump through all kinds of hoops, and they were not allowed to technically sell vehicles from that showroom because Michigan's got these really crazy rules about how dealerships are set up, and manufacturers are not allowed to sell vehicles directly to end consumers because back in the old days, dealerships were, had agreements with the manufacturers, and they were worried that somewhere down the road, after they'd done all the trouble of, establishing a dealership, that the factory could set up a dealership and just start selling cars that compete with them. So Michigan did have these laws on the books that said, hey, manufacturers cannot set up dealerships specifically because we don't want them competing with the other dealerships selling their cars. Tesla doesn't have traditional dealerships, so the law shouldn't affect them. But of course, they tweaked it to make sure it did. And then when Tesla sued, well, then the legislature actually played around with the rules a little bit and made it so that Tesla could sell cars here, but other people couldn't. Well, here's what's going on now. Tesla thought it was safe from Michigan's latest efforts to prevent car dealers from having competition from new automakers, but now we learn that the state legislature is trying to shut Tesla's loophole. Michigan's been a battleground for Tesla when it comes to the right to sell and service its vehicles. And of course, the reason that Michigan is so militant about this is that Michigan is the home to the big three, and that'd be Ford, GM, and Chrysler. And I know those companies have different names these days. I don't care. That's what I call them. I've mentioned the big three before, and I've actually got people go, what are you talking about? I don't understand. It doesn't matter if they're not the big three anymore in terms of being the top three of anything, okay? But they are known as the big three, Ford, GM, and Chrysler. There are several states where Tesla has been banned from selling its vehicles directly to consumers due to old laws meant to protect car dealers from their own manufacturers. And Michigan has stood out among them as it is home of the U.S. auto industry. Of course, there are manufacturing plants all over America, as well as Canada and Mexico. But the headquarters, GM's headquarters, Ford's headquarters, and FCA's headquarters, Chrysler, are all in southeastern Michigan. So a change in the law in 2014 prohibited direct sales from automakers that blocked Tesla from obtaining a dealership license and selling its cars in the state. After legislature tried to change things in 2016, Tesla filed the lawsuit I told you about. And that lawsuit claimed that the ban on direct sales violates commerce laws and that it was pushed by car dealers and GM in an attempt to block the electric automaker at the last hour. And that's what it is. It's simply an anti-competitive law. It's designed to protect the guys here, the big three. So it has since been a long legal process during which Tesla tried to prove that lawmakers were influenced by car dealers to specifically prevent Tesla to sell vehicles direct to consumers in the state. Earlier this year, Tesla reached a settlement with the state of Michigan that would have allowed direct sales and service of vehicles here. Now, Michigan didn't officially allow Tesla to get a dealer license, but it is allowing Tesla to sell to and service customers' cars in Michigan through loopholes like registering cars from another state for deliveries and having a wholly owned subsidiary perform services. Earlier this year, Electrek reported that the state legislature introduced a new bill that would make sure no other new automaker would get access to that loophole. So they basically said at first, no one can do this. Tesla sued and they said, okay, no one can do this but Tesla. And this is one of those things where I think politicians underestimate how smart people are. No one hears the story and goes, oh, that makes complete sense. Sure. Having a law that says that manufacturers can't sell directly to consumers, sure, makes complete sense. Or, oh, it makes sense to carve out a loophole for Tesla because they sued. Huh? So The new legislation was introduced after Rivian was looking to set up its own sale and service operations in the state. So at the time, even the Michigan Auto Dealer Association, who were unsurprisingly backing the bill, said that Tesla wouldn't be affected by the new law. But one thing that lawyers and other people in the legal business will tell you, the second the legislature starts tinkering, when they get the bill out and start writing it, crazy things can happen. It can be introduced to solve this problem and be passed with all these other things in it. It can be introduced to solve this problem, skip that problem altogether, and work on other problems. It's mind-boggling. They jokingly say it's worse than watching sausage get made. You do not want to know how bills get made. It's ugly. Terry Burns, executive VP of the Michigan Auto Dealers Association, says that the agreement with Tesla didn't change the law and that the new bill is simply clarifying that. That settlement was based on a clear set of specific facts for a specific time. However, we now learn that the language of the bill was changed at the last minute before it was approved by the Michigan House. So according to Detroit News, House lawmakers on Wednesday struck key language from a bill that would have enshrined a carve-out for Tesla in Michigan's ban on direct vehicle sales. Instead, lawmakers passed a bill that appears to counteract the January settlement that Tesla had with the state by banning vehicle manufacturers from directly or indirectly owning a motor vehicle repair or service center. The new bill still needs to pass the state Senate and be signed by the governor, but if it goes through, it could reverse the loophole put in place as part of Tesla's settlement with the state. Tesla had opened a service center near Detroit earlier this year following that agreement. So if the carve-out and the loophole disappears, then Tesla is back out of business as far as those endeavors go, which, I mean, probably just says that the lawsuit will be fired back up again. Meanwhile, and this is Electrek giving their opinion through Fred Lambert, Michigan passed a questionable law preventing Tesla from operating at sale and service centers in the state. Tesla tried to challenge the law at the legislative level, but it got shut down by politicians who appear to be in the pockets of car dealers. Actually, that's correct. You got that, my friend. Fred Lambert preaching it, and that is absolutely what happened. Then Tesla instead takes Secretary of State and Chief Motor Vehicle Administrator Ruth Johnson, Michigan's Attorney General, Bill Schuette, and now former Governor Rick Snyder to court over the issue. These bozos don't like the heat and decide to settle with an official loophole, allowing Tesla to operate. A few months later, the legislature decides to close the loophole, basically invalidating the result of a 3-year-long lawsuit. This is nonsense, and I can't imagine it's not the result of the U.S.'s massive problem of money in politics. There's no other reason to support these kinds of laws other than wanting to play nice with car dealers who are notoriously big financial supporters in politics at the state level. And again, he's dead on. That is exactly what's happening here. The auto dealers have a very powerful lobby. I've spoken about it before. We'll get back to that in a second. Meanwhile, Tesla, Rivian, Lucid, and any other automakers who never benefited from third-party franchise dealers investing in building a distribution network for them should, of course, be allowed to build their own distribution and service network and not be forced to work with third-party car dealers. There's no good argument against this. And that's what's funny, is if you actually hear the arguments they make, they're often absurd. They claim they're doing this to protect consumers. Yeah. We're going to protect consumers from buying Tesla. Because when they buy Tesla, they're not buying a car from us. So we're going to protect them from that. So he does refer to us as Michiganders, and I like Michiganian. If I were you, I'd vote out of office all of those politicians who are voting for this new bill, starting with Representative Jason Shepard from Temperance, Michigan, who sponsored the bill. I'm trying to find a list of the other 65 House reps, people who claim to be representing you who voted for it, and when I find it, I'll add it. So you'd be amazed at how powerful that lobby is. I've spoken in Lansing on several different occasions to different groups of people, both legislators where I was testifying about something, and also just to groups of legislators who'd asked me to come in and answer questions for them. And both situations involved cars. And the testimony that I gave in Lansing was when they were looking at amending Michigan's lemon law to allow it to cover leased vehicles. At one point in time, if you bought a car in Michigan, it was a lemon, it got bought back. If you leased the exact same car, it wouldn't get bought back. The manufacturer says, yeah, it's tough. You don't own it, you're leasing it. And so people would have a leased vehicle that's in the shop for 4, 5, 6 months. They're making full payments on it to the finance company. They can't drive it. The manufacturer just goes, well, we're still working on it. And so when I went to testify, I was the only person who testified for consumers. There was a whole raft of lobbyists and other representatives who testified against the change. And there was people from the big three manufacturers. There were people, lobbyists and these different organizations and trade groups. And I did feel a little bit outnumbered. But the funny part was when I testified, I realized, I'm the only person who makes sense here. And I gave some examples. And I said, I had a guy who bought this car, and I describe it, and it got bought back. I had a guy who leased a car with the identical set of facts. And it wouldn't get bought back because the manufacturers, we don't have to buy it back. It's not a lemon, it's a lease. You don't own the car. And the example I gave was of a Corvette. I actually had guys who bought Corvettes that had identical problems. One was a lease, one was a buy. Sorry, one buy, one lease. And I gave the example. And while I was talking, there's a guy over there just shaking his head, kind of taking notes, shaking his head like he's all disappointed in me. And when I got up, a break was taken. When I got up, I walked, and I was walking out. The guy walks from me, makes a big show of it, and he goes, "Excuse me." He goes, "I'm from General Motors." And he hands me his card. He goes, "Call me. I'll take care of the guy with the Corvette." All you had to do is call me. I go, "Dude, this happened 2 years ago. What are you talking? You can't help me now." Don't pretend you care now because people are watching, okay? You should have pretended you cared when the guy had the defective Corvette. That's when you should have pretended to care, So the big three and the dealerships want to protect their model. And this happens. You can find examples of this throughout history. There were people who wanted to outlaw electric lights outdoors, okay? And you can go back and find the reasoning for it. And they claim things like, it'll confuse the animals. We'll think it's daylight all the time. It'll confuse the plants. The plants won't know when to stop growing. People made these arguments. And so right now, what's freaking out the auto industry is Tesla. It's Tesla. And a couple of years ago, they actually thought, Tesla will never survive. They'll never make it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Well, they're surviving and they're making it. And people in Michigan were jumping through hoops like you wouldn't believe to buy Tesla automobiles. And I see them on the road now. They're here. And if Tesla was allowed to simply open up showrooms and sell them, they'd make a dent. They would make a dent. So the car companies are stalling for time. They know it's inevitable. It's inevitable. But what they're hoping to do is they're hoping that by the time Tesla and the others finally get allowed to sell vehicles here, they're hoping that they will have finally gotten their act together with respect to electric vehicles. And it looks like they are, but the big three are very, very slow, plodding, big corporations that take forever to do things. So they're finally getting on this a couple of years late, but they're getting on it. And a couple of years down the road, when whichever court it is orders the state of Michigan to let Tesla sell vehicles here, at that point, the big three is going to say, but we bought ourselves 5 years. We bought ourselves 5 years. And they're buying it at the expense of consumers who can't buy what they want to buy easily, okay? So think about the idea of buying something. You want to buy a widget, okay? You want to buy a widget. People get upset. They go, "That's a lens cap, Steve." Yeah, a widget is simply anything that's just a thing that we talk about. You want to buy a widget. Quite often, if you want to, you can pick up your cell phone, hit the Amazon button if you've got the app on your phone, search the thing you want, find it, go, there it is. And if you've got Amazon Prime and an account, you can go buy it now. Click. And a little thing will pop up and say, yes. And it'll also tell you when it'll get delivered. And it's been a little off with COVID, but it would often say, you'll have it in 3 days. And then you close and you put your phone down. You just bought something that was so ridiculously easy. 20 years ago, you never could have imagined that was the case, that you could pick up something that sat on your desk, press a couple buttons, boom, and you just ordered and paid for something that will show up at your house in a couple days. That's talk about ease of purchase, okay? But then you go to the other end, by the way, as you're sliding across the spectrum, the car dealership model's in there somewhere, okay? And it's not easy because it's so painful. But as it goes further and further and further, you wind up in a situation where, you want to buy a car in Michigan from a company that's not allowed to sell the cars here directly to consumers. So you have to go to like another state, or you've got to go to a showroom here, but they're going to deliver it here. And it becomes one of the most convoluted purchases possible. And again, they're just doing that to buy themselves time. So it's legislators who are in the pockets of lobbyists for big business, and the businesses are the automakers and the dealers that the automakers sell their cars through. So it's a crazy story, but the Tesla loophole for direct sales in Michigan is getting shut with impressive political backstabbing. From electrek.com, Fred Lambert wrote a great article. Larry, Jeff, and Jeff sent it to me. Thanks a lot, guys. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. What do you call a horse who expresses negative views? A naysayer.